Hey everyone, before we get into the story, please leave a comment telling us what part of the world you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so the channel can grow and I can bring you more interesting stories like this one. I went to a new obstetrician for a checkup on my pregnancy. She stared at the ultrasound screen and then looked at me, her face pale. Who was the doctor handling your previous checkups? My husband, doctor, he's an OB/GYN too. I need to run some tests on you immediately. This object I'm seeing, the doctor said, her voice filled with alarm. It shouldn't be there. I was in shock. Lucy felt this pregnancy was different not just because it was her first, but because of the way her husband Jacob treated her, like a rare piece of porcelain he was afraid might crack. Jacob was an OB/GYN, and at first Lucy thought it was a blessing. There was no need to find another doctor. Jacob handled everything, the vitamins, the meal schedules, even the temperature of the AC in their bedroom. In the beginning, Lucy felt cherished, but as she entered her 7th month, that care began to feel like surveillance. Jacob insisted on performing all the ultrasounds himself in his private study, claiming it was for privacy. "I don't want another man looking at you, honey," he'd said once, and Lucy in love found it romantic. However, there was another shadow that unsettled Lucy. Her mother-in-law, Carol. Carol was the image of the perfect matriarch in public, but there was something odd about her when they were alone. She would come over almost daily with a strange-smelling herbal tonic, insisting Lucy drink it. "It's for the health of the baby," she would say. What made Lucy most uncomfortable was the way Carol touched her belly. It wasn't the touch of a loving grandmother, but something that felt like an appraisal. "I wonder how much this grandson asset will be worth," Carol murmured one afternoon, her eyes fixed on Lucy's stomach with a cold focus. "He's our most valuable asset." The word asset echoed in Lucy's ears. Not a blessing, not a gift, but an asset, like stocks or real estate. The unease grew. Jacob always dismissed it, saying her hormones were making her overly sensitive, but Lucy knew she wasn't hallucinating. Something was wrong. She wanted confirmation from someone else, a neutral perspective. With trembling hands, Lucy made an appointment at a clinic on the outskirts of the city. She used a fake name and paid in cash, seeking out Dr. Hayes, a maternal-fetal medicine specialist highly recommended on a mother's forum. She lied to Jacob, telling him she was going to a reunion with old college friends. The guilt gnawed at her, but the fear was far greater. Dr. Hayes' clinic was different from Jacob's somber study. It was bright and clean, and the staff was friendly. Lucy relaxed a little. Dr. Hayes was a middle-aged woman, professional and serene. Lucy explained she just wanted a second opinion for peace of mind, adding that she'd like a 4D ultrasound for the baby album. Dr. Hayes smiled understandingly. "Well, let's take a look at that baby," she said kindly. Lucy lay back. The cool gel was applied to her belly. A black and white image began to form on the large screen in front of her. The baby's heartbeat filled the room, strong and rhythmic. "He's very active," Lucy said, tears of relief welling in her eyes. The baby was healthy. Maybe she was just being paranoid. Dr. Hayes smiled. "Yes, Lucy. The baby is very healthy, a strong heart, a straight spine. Perfect." The doctor moved the transducer, measuring the head circumference and femur length. Lucy began to relax and enjoy the moment, but suddenly the smile vanished from Dr. Hayes' face. She moved the transducer again to a spot far away from the image of the baby. Her expression turned serious. She pressed a few buttons, enlarging the image on her own monitor. Then with a swift move, she turned off Lucy's screen. "What's wrong, doctor?" Lucy asked, her heart starting to pound. "Is our baby okay?" "Your baby is fine," Dr. Hayes replied, but her voice was strained. She put down the ultrasound transducer and looked intently at Lucy. A suffocating silence filled the room. "Who was the doctor who examined you previously?" Dr. Hayes asked, her voice low but firm. Lucy was bewildered by the sudden change in atmosphere. "My husband, Dr. Jacob Reed. He's also an OB/GYN, and his mother, Carol, has been helping me a lot." Dr. Hayes remained silent. She looked back at her monitor as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She looked pale. She rose from her seat, her hands trembling slightly. "Lucy," she said, her voice now alarmed and urgent. I need to run some tests on you immediately, a full blood panel, and I'm scheduling an MRI for you as soon as possible. Lucy started to panic. Why, doctor? What is it? Is it cancer? A tumor? The doctor quickly shook her head. No, it's not that. I don't know exactly what it is, but this object I'm seeing shouldn't be there. It doesn't belong inside your uterus. What object, doctor? Please explain. Lucy sat up despite the ultrasound gel still on her belly, a coldness more intense than any gel spreading through her. Dr. Hayes took a deep breath, trying to contain her alarm for her patient's sake. She turned the monitor toward Lucy. Your baby is healthy. Look here, she said, pointing to the image of the peacefully curled up fetus. But here, she moved the image, pointing to a spot near Lucy's uterine wall quite close to the baby. There was a small, dense, and oddly shaped shadow. It was very precise in its form, almost like a tiny metallic capsule in stark contrast to the biological tissue surrounding it. What is that? Lucy whispered in horror. That's the problem. I don't know, Dr. Hayes said frankly. It's definitely not part of your anatomy, nor is it any medical device I'm familiar with. It's not an IUD. It's not an implant. It's a foreign body, Lucy, an artificial object. Lucy stared at the shadow. I've never had surgery. I've never had anything put inside me. That's what worries me, Dr. Hayes said, turning off the ultrasound machine. Your husband Jacob is an OB-GYN. There's no way he would have missed this on the ultrasounds. It's quite obvious if you know what to look for. Those words hit Lucy. If you know what to look for, it meant Jacob knew. His attentiveness, his prohibition on seeing other doctors, all the ultrasounds he had done himself. It wasn't to protect her privacy, but to protect that object. I need a sample of your blood, Dr. Hayes said now in professional mode. I want to check for inflammatory markers, any heavy metals being released into your bloodstream. And we need that MRI, but we have to be very careful. Dr. Hayes looked Lucy directly in the eyes. You must not under any circumstances mention this to your husband or your mother-in-law. But why? Because if your husband knows about this and has been hiding it from you, you could be in grave danger. I don't know what the purpose of this object is, but it was placed there deliberately. We must assume a worst-case scenario. Dr. Hayes scheduled Lucy's MRI at a different hospital under a fake name on the pretense of a nutritional consult. She drew blood and sent her home. Act as if nothing happened, the doctor warned her. Watch your husband. Listen, don't give away your fear. The drive home was a nightmare. Lucy drove in a daze. Every little kick from the baby now felt like a reminder of the other invader inside her body. The asset. Was this what Carol meant? When Lucy got home, it was already evening. The house was quiet. Jacob wasn't back from work yet. Carol wasn't there either. Lucy took a quick shower, washing away the remnants of the gel, trying to calm her racing heart. She had to act normal. Jacob arrived late, looking tired. He gave her a kiss on the forehead. How was the reunion? It was good, honey. A lot of people came, Lucy replied, struggling to sound casual. Jacob smiled, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Don't wear yourself out. Remember, you're carrying precious cargo. That night, Lucy couldn't sleep. She lay on her side with her back to Jacob, feigning sleep. She felt his every move. Around 2 a.m., Jacob must have thought she was sound asleep. He slipped out of bed, silently, making almost no noise. Lucy held her breath. Jacob took his phone and left the room, closing the door carefully. Lucy waited a few seconds before sliding out of bed. She opened the door a crack. Jacob hadn't gone far. He was standing in front of his private study upstairs, the door slightly ajar. Lucy could hear his voice, a tense whisper. She went to see another doctor, Mom, Jacob whispered. Lucy's heart stopped. Yeah, just a cheap 4D ultrasound. She said she wanted to see the baby's face. No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's too dumb to suspect. There was a pause. Jacob was listening to the person on the other end of the line. Lucy knew exactly who it was, Carol. Of course I checked it last night while she was sleeping. Jacob continued, a hint of irritation in his voice now. Don't worry, the object's position is still secure. The pregnancy hasn't shifted it. Everything is stable. Another pause. Yes, Mom, I'll extract it myself during the delivery. I'll make it all look like a normal complication. Then we can take care of the rest. Jacob let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Of course, I still have Richard Franklin's inheritance documents. Nothing has changed. It's all going according to your plan." Lucy clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. The object, the delivery, Richard Franklin's inheritance, documents her father. It was all connected to her late father. Her husband Jacob and her mother-in-law Carol were conspiring against her, and the key to everything was inside her uterus, right next to her unborn child. Lucy crawled back into bed. Her body was ice cold, despite the stuffy air in the room. She pulled the covers up to her chin, her eyes fixed on the closed door. Behind that door in his study, her husband had just confirmed her worst fears. He wasn't just a controlling husband. He was a conspirator, a liar, and maybe a future murderer. And he was working for his mother. Richard Franklin's inheritance documents. What did this have to do with her long-dead father? Richard Franklin had been a successful businessman, but he had never flaunted his wealth. He lived modestly, and Lucy had always believed her inheritance consisted solely of this house and enough funds for her education. She was obviously very wrong. Lucy forced herself to breathe evenly. She couldn't let Jacob know she was awake. When Jacob returned to the room 15 minutes later, he moved silently, like a predator. Lucy felt the dip in the mattress as he lay down. She could feel her husband's breath on the back of her neck, steady and calm. She was sleeping next to a monster, and the monster was sleeping soundly. The morning brought a new kind of terror. How could she act normal? How could she let Jacob touch her, give her vitamins, smile at her? But she had to. Her life and her baby's life depended on it. She smiled through breakfast and swallowed the vitamins Jacob gave her, then quietly threw them up in the bathroom. She needed to get out of this house. She needed answers. The only person who might know anything was her late mother's sister, her Aunt Martha. Aunt Martha was a simple, shy woman who had always kept her distance from Lucy after Richard's death. Lucy had always thought it was because her aunt was uncomfortable with their wealth. Now Lucy suspected it was because she knew something. Lucy waited for Jacob to leave for the hospital. "I have a surgery, might be late," he said, kissing her forehead. Lucy resisted the urge to wipe his lips from her skin. As soon as Jacob's car was out of sight, Lucy rushed. She didn't dare take her phone, fearing Jacob was tracking her. She grabbed the car keys and drove to her Aunt Martha's house in the suburbs. The house was small, with a well-tended garden that contrasted with her own large, cold home. Aunt Martha was shocked to see a pregnant Lucy on her doorstep. "Lucy, my goodness, what is it?" "Auntie, I need to talk to you. It's very important." Aunt Martha let her in and made her some tea with trembling hands. "You're as pale as a ghost. Jacob, has he hurt you?" Lucy wasn't expecting that question. "You never liked Jacob." Aunt Martha looked away. "It's not that. It's just the way he looks at you, the way your father used to look at your mother." Lucy was confused, but she didn't have time. "Auntie, I don't have much time. I need to know about my father and a woman named Carol." Aunt Martha's teacup rattled so violently that tea spilled out. She set it down with a clatter, her face paler than Lucy's. "Why are you saying that name?" She whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "You shouldn't." "She's my mother-in-law. That's why I'm here, Auntie, please. Carol is Jacob's mother. What do you know?" Aunt Martha let out a shaky sigh and began to cry, a low, repressed sob. "Stay away from that woman, Lucy. You have to get away from her." "I can't, Auntie. I live with them. She's my husband's mother." "Please tell me." Aunt Martha took a deep, shuddering breath. "Carol is not a good person. Years ago, before your mother died, she was your father's personal assistant. She was very smart, very capable, but also cunning. Your father trusted her a great deal. What happened? She was obsessed not with your father, but with his fortune. Your father, Richard, was a good man, but he was also paranoid. He hid his fortune everywhere. He didn't trust banks. He didn't trust anyone." Aunt Martha continued, "One night your father found Carol in his study trying to open his personal safe. Not the normal safe, but the one that held his secret asset ledgers. Your father was furious. He fired her on the spot." "Is that all?" Lucy asked. "No. Carol didn't take it well. She threatened your father. I was in the next room. I heard her screaming, 'You humiliate me, Richard. Your fortune should have been mine. One day I will get it. One way or another, I will take everything you have.'" Lucy was silent. "Richard Franklin's inheritance documents. Carol had been planning this for decades. "Auntie," Lucy said softly, "my father's inheritance. What do you know about it? Jacob and Carol kept mentioning it." Aunt Martha looked at Lucy, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Your father was an eccentric, Lucy. After your mother died, he became even more paranoid. He said he had to protect his legacy. He created a very strange will. He said his main inheritance, valued at billions of dollars, couldn't be accessed without a special key." "What key? Where is it?" "I don't know. He just said he hid it in the safest place in the world, inside his most cherished treasure. Something people would never steal because they wouldn't know it was there." Lucy looked down at her belly. "My baby." Aunt Martha quickly shook her head. "No, dear, not his grandchild. This was long before you were married." Aunt Martha looked at Lucy with horror, as if she had just realized something. "Lucy, when you were about 15, did your father take you to a private clinic overseas in Geneva? He had said it was for a minor medical procedure, some kind of new vaccine." The memory hit Lucy like a physical blow. She remembered the clinic in Switzerland. They had put her under full anesthesia. Her father said it was to strengthen her immune system. "This object I'm seeing shouldn't be there." Lucy swayed. "Oh my God, Auntie, the object is inside me." Aunt Martha let out a small cry. "He implanted it in you. Your own father implanted the key inside his daughter." "And Carol knew," Lucy whispered. "That's why she made Jacob become an OB-GYN to marry me to get me pregnant." Lucy grabbed her aunt's arm. "What do I do? They're planning to cut it out of me when I give birth." Aunt Martha was panicking. "You have to go to the police and tell them what? That my husband is too attentive, that my father implanted something in my body. They'll think I'm crazy." Lucy knew she needed more than just a story. She needed proof, and she needed a powerful ally. "Auntie, think. My father must have left other clues. Who was his lawyer?" "I don't know. He changed lawyers constantly. He trusted no one." "Think again, Auntie. There must have been one." Aunt Martha closed her eyes tightly, trying to remember. "Wait, there was one. He mentioned him only once. He wasn't a corporate lawyer. He was young, a rookie back then. Your father said he was the only honest man he'd ever met, the only one not blinded by money. His name was Alexander Vance. Yes, Alexander Vance. Your father said only Vance could execute his secret will. Only he knew how it worked." "Alexander Vance?" Lucy repeated. "I have to find him." Lucy left Aunt Martha's house, her mind racing. She had a name, Alexander Vance, but she also had a new terror. The key was inside her. Her own father had put it there, turning her into a walking safe deposit box, a target for anyone greedy enough to want his fortune. And now the wolf was already in her house. She had to get home before Jacob became suspicious. She had to act normal. But before heading home, she stopped at a small convenience store and bought a cheap burner phone. She wasn't taking any chances. That night was the longest torture of Lucy's life. She had to smile at Jacob. She had to let Carol, who had stopped by for dinner, stroke her belly. "Such a healthy baby," Carol said with a sweet smile. "We have to take good care of him." Lucy wanted to throw up. She just nodded and smiled. She knew she needed tangible proof. Jacob's confession she had overheard on the phone wasn't enough. Aunt Martha's story would be dismissed as hearsay. She needed something solid to take to Alexander Vance, and she knew where to find it, Jacob's study, the one that was always locked. The opportunity came 2 days later. Jacob got an emergency call from the hospital, an urgent C-section, a patient in critical condition. He left in a hurry. "Mom will come stay with you," he said before he left. Lucy knew her window of opportunity was narrow. As soon as Jacob left, she ran to the study. The door, as always, was locked, but Lucy had noticed Jacob didn't use a key. He used a keypad on the doorknob. She tried her birthday. Fail, Jacob's birthday. Fail, their wedding anniversary. Fail. Lucy panicked. She heard a car in the distance. Carol. She tried one last combination, something that disgusted her, her baby's due date. Click. The door opened. The pang of betrayal was profound. He had used their baby as a key. The room was cold and orderly. Behind a gloomy landscape painting on the wall, Lucy knew there was a safe. She pulled the painting aside. As expected, a digital safe. She tried the same code, the baby's due date. Beep! The safe swung open. Inside, there was no money or jewelry, but a stack of documents labeled Richard Franklin, and on top of the pile, a thick black leather-bound journal. Lucy pulled it out. It wasn't a normal journal, it was a medical log. Her hands shook as she opened the first page. It was about her. In cold, clinical handwriting, Jacob had documented everything. First page, access to subject, Lucy established successfully. Phase 1 complete. She shows interest as expected. Pages from months later, wedding performed. Full access to subject achieved. C is very pleased. The most chilling pages were at the end. They started with the beginning of her pregnancy. Pregnancy successfully induced after 3 attempts. Subject is unsuspecting. Location of object confirmed via handheld ultrasound. Stable, no displacement due to fetal growth. Lucy flipped through the pages breathless. The most recent entry was from a few days ago. Extraction plan for D-Day. Proceed with emergency C-section following staged failed induction. Claim fetal distress nuchal cord. Full general anesthesia will be used. This will provide sufficient time for object extraction after baby delivery. And then a final sentence in a different ink as if added later. C suggests a malpractice accident with the anesthesia overdose post-procedure. Cleanest way to eliminate future ownership complications. Subject does not need to survive once object is successfully retrieved. Lucy's knees gave out and she sank to the floor. An anesthesia accident. They were planning to kill her. It wasn't just a theft. It was a cold-blooded murder plot designed by her husband and his mother. She photographed every single page of that journal with her new phone. Her heart was pounding so hard her ears were ringing. She had to put everything back. As she was about to close the safe, her eyes caught something else, an old yellowed envelope tucked under the pile of documents. It was handwritten in a flowery script Lucy recognized as Carol's. It was addressed to Jacob at an old dorm room address. Lucy opened the letter. The date was from 20 years ago when Jacob had just started medical school. My dearest Jacob, the letter began. I know it's expensive. Mom knows, but it will be worth it. That coward of a father of yours would never understand. But we know what we're fighting for. Richard Franklin's fortune should be ours. He humiliated me, fired me, treated me like dirt just because I wanted what was rightfully mine. Now listen to me closely. I've discovered his secret. That fool Richard has implanted the key to his fortune inside his own daughter. That stupid little girl Lucy. It's fate, Jacob. You must become a doctor, not a surgeon, not a pediatrician. You must become an obstetrician. It's the only way. You will make her fall in love with you. You will marry her, get her pregnant, and then you will bring home what is rightfully ours. Don't fail me, son. Don't be like your father. Do this for me. Do this for our future. All these sacrifices will be rewarded. Lucy stared at the letter in horror. This wasn't a new plan. This was a script written by Carol decades ago. Jacob wasn't just a bad husband. He was a tool sharpened for 20 years by his mother aimed directly at Lucy's heart. Suddenly, Lucy heard the sound of a key in the front door. Click-clack. Carol had arrived. Sooner than Jacob had said. Lucy panicked. She scrambled to put the letter and journal back in the safe, closed it, and replaced the painting. She ran out of the study, locking the door with the same code. She made it to the living room, breathless, just as Carol walked in with grocery bags. Why Lucy? Carol's sweet smile unfolded. Why are you panting so dear, as if you've been running? Lucy swallowed hard, forcing a smile onto her tight face. Her hands were shaking violently behind her back. Oh, nothing, Carol. Lucy's voice sounded strange, even to her own ears. I just had a sudden craving for something sour. I was on my way to the kitchen. Why are you here so early? A knot formed in her throat. Carol was standing in the doorway, her smile like a kind porcelain mask. I brought you your favorite chicken soup, she said, holding up a grocery bag. Thank you, Carol. Lucy replied, barely audible. She could feel Carol's gaze stripping away her every move, searching for any sign of anxiety. Lucy's hand clutching the cheap phone in the pocket of her sweatpants was damp with sweat. She had to act normal. She knew time was running out. Jacob's journal and Carol's letter were proof of a perfect crime, but that proof would be useless if she ended up dead on an operating table. She had to get out of this house. but how Carol now followed her like a shadow, sleeping in the guest room next door, under the pretense of helping watching every bite of food that entered Lucy's mouth. Lucy knew she couldn't just run. They would catch her. She needed a plan, a distraction, and an outside ally. She thought of Dr. Hayes. She had that MRI appointment the doctor had scheduled. It was her only legitimate reason to leave the house without Jacob, but the appointment was 3 days away. She wasn't sure she had that much time. That night, after Carol had fallen asleep in the next room, Lucy slipped into the bathroom, locked the door, turned the faucet on full blast, and sat on the cold floor. She pulled out her burner phone. The reception in the bathroom was terrible, but she managed to send a single text message to Dr. Hayes. He knows. His mother, too. They won't let me go. They plan to kill me during delivery. I need to get out now. The reply came 5 minutes later, which felt like an eternity. Stay calm, Lucy. Do not panic. Move your MRI appointment up to tomorrow morning. Tell your husband it's a recommendation from your previous doctor for a pelvic check. Come to the address I'm sending you. Do not go back home. I will have a team ready. We have to make this look medically legitimate. A new address appeared. It wasn't the hospital where Dr. Hayes worked. It was a discreet private clinic. Lucy deleted the messages. One problem solved. Now the second, Alexander Vance. She had a name, but not a face, not a number. She couldn't search for him online. She was sure Jacob and Carol were monitoring her internet activity. Then she remembered something her father's study, the real study of Richard Franklin in the guest house out back. It was a place neither Jacob nor Carol ever went. They probably thought the room was filled with junk and bad memories, but Lucy knew her father kept everything. In the pre-dawn hours, long before either Jacob or Carol was awake, Lucy went to the guest house. The room smelled of dust, old paper, and wood. On the towering shelves among thick business ledgers, Lucy found what she was looking for, a thick leather-bound address book. She opened it with trembling hands. Under V, she found it. Vance Alexander, Vance & Associates law firm. There was an office number and a personal number. Lucy photographed the numbers with her burner phone. Suddenly, she heard footsteps in the hall. Her heart leaped into her throat. "Lucy, honey." It was Jacob's voice. "What are you doing in here at this hour? It's so dusty. Not good for the baby." Lucy quickly hid the phone behind her back. "I was just missing Dad," she whispered, using the truth as a lie. "I just suddenly wanted to see his things." Jacob studied her for a moment, his clinical gaze assessing her, and then he smiled. The fake smile Lucy knew so well. "Come back to bed. You need your rest. You have that MRI tomorrow, right? You told me last night." Lucy froze. "Oh, yes, honey. For a pelvic check. My old doctor said it was important." "Of course," Jacob said. "Good idea. Mom will take you. I have a major surgery tomorrow I can't cancel." Lucy's blood ran cold. Carol would take her. This was a disaster. Her escape plan was falling apart. She couldn't get away with Carol there. But Lucy just nodded. "Okay, honey, that's fine." She would have to adapt her plan. Tomorrow would be the day of her escape, one way or another. In the morning, Lucy got ready, her mind working at top speed. Carol was already waiting for her in the car. Lucy went to the bathroom one last time. She pulled out her phone. She knew she had only one shot. She sent a text to Alexander Vance to that personal number. "I am Lucy Franklin, Richard Franklin's daughter. My life is in danger. My husband Jacob and his mother Carol are trying to kill me for my father's inheritance. I have proof. I'm on my way to the Futura Clinic on Rosewood Street now. Please, I have nowhere else to go. Track this phone." She sent it, then turned the phone off and hid it inside her shoe. The drive to the clinic was excruciating. Carol chattered on about how happy she was to have a grandchild soon. Lucy just nodded along, her heart pounding so hard she was afraid Carol could hear it. They arrived at the clinic. It was small and discreet, very different from a large hospital. Carol looked at the building suspiciously. Why here? Why not a major hospital? "It's a specialty clinic for pregnancy MRIs, Carol. It's safer," Lucy repeated, using the excuse Dr. Hayes had given her. Lucy went inside. A nurse greeted her. "Lucy, please come change. Your mother-in-law can wait here." "I'll go with her," Carol said sharply. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the nurse said firmly. "Strict rules." No companions in the changing rooms or the MRI suite due to the radiation. Carol looked furious, but she couldn't argue with medical procedures. She sat in the waiting room, her eyes fixed on the door Lucy had disappeared through. Lucy entered the changing room. Dr. Hayes was already waiting inside. "You made it," the doctor whispered. "She's out there. She won't let me go," Lucy said, panicking. "You're not going out the front door." Dr. Hayes pointed to another door behind a locker. "That's the staff exit. There's a car waiting. Now give me your phone." "I left it at home." "Good. Now hurry. We only have about 15 minutes before she starts getting suspicious." Just as Lucy was about to move, the clinic's fire alarm blared to life. Light smoke began to fill the hallways. There were panicked shouts from the waiting room. The changing room door burst open. It wasn't Dr. Hayes. It was Carol, her eyes burning with rage. "Where do you think you're going, you little traitor?" Carol snarled. She must have pulled the alarm herself. Dr. Hayes tried to intervene. "Ma'am, what are you doing? This is a hospital." Carol shoved Dr. Hayes against a wall. "Shut up. This is a family matter." She grabbed Lucy's arm. "You think you're so clever you'll never escape me. Jacob is waiting out back. We knew you'd try something." This was all a trap. Jacob didn't have surgery. They knew she would try to run. They had set her up. "We're going to do that operation right now," Carol said, dragging Lucy down a back hallway. Lucy fought back. "Let go of me, please. They're trying to kill me." Lucy screamed at the top of her lungs. They reached the back exit. There was no ambulance waiting but a black van. Jacob was standing beside it. His face was cold and expressionless. He was holding something, a chloroform rag. "I told you she wouldn't come quietly," Jacob said to his mother. The two of them grabbed Lucy. She struggled, kicked, and bit, but her strength was failing her. Jacob started to bring the cloth to her face. "Stop right there." A calm but commanding voice cut through the chaos. Jacob and Carol froze. At the end of the alley, a man in an impeccable suit stood calmly. He was not alone. Behind him were two uniformed police officers. "Who are you?" Jacob shouted, still holding Lucy. "I'm Alexander Vance," the man said. "I'm the attorney for the late Richard Franklin, and I represent my client, her—" He pointed to Lucy, who has just informed me that you two are attempting to kidnap her. Carol laughed. "Nonsense, this girl is my son's wife. She's hysterical, probably ill." "She might be," Alexander said, "but her illness had the good fortune to send me a complete copy of this medical journal." Alexander held up his phone showing the photos Lucy had sent of Jacob's journal pages, and also a copy of the murder plot letter you wrote 20 years ago, Mrs. Reed. The color drained from Jacob's and Carol's faces. "We received Ms. Franklin's call." Alexander continued, his voice now icy, "and we tracked the phone. But we also received an emergency package from Dr. Hayes with all the medical evidence, including the MRI results of the object in my client's uterus." Dr. Hayes stepped out from behind the policeman, her face tense but determined. "Jacob," Alexander said, "as a doctor, you know what medical malpractice is. But as a conspirator, you just made a fatal error. You wrote it all down." The two police officers moved forward. "Jacob Reed, Carol Reed, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to kidnap, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Jacob let go of Lucy. He knew it was over, but Carol didn't. With an animalistic scream, she lunged at Lucy, no longer caring about the baby or the key. "If I can't have it, neither can you." But it was too late. The police already had her restrained. Jacob stood still, defeated by his own arrogance. Lucy swayed, nearly falling. Alexander caught her. "Lucy," he said gently, "I'm Alexander Vance, your father's lawyer. You're safe now." Lucy looked at the man, then at Dr. Hayes. Her allies had come. She had made it. And at that exact moment, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. It wasn't from Carol's grip. This was different. She looked at Dr. Hayes with terrified eyes. "Doctor," she gasped, "I think my water just broke." Lucy clutched her belly, a sharp pain that had nothing to do with fear tearing through her body. Amniotic fluid soaked her legs, creating a pool on the grimy alley floor. The baby was coming now in the middle of this chaos, with her husband being arrested and handcuffed. Carol saw the pool at Lucy's feet. Her hate-filled eyes suddenly transformed into a terrifying focus. "The baby!" she shrieked. "The key is being born!" She began to struggle with inhuman strength, dragging the officer holding her. "Jacob, get the baby! Get the key!" Jacob, in contrast, was paralyzed. His face was ashen, not from the arrest but from the sight of Alexander. He had seen his journal on Alexander's phone. As an expert manipulator, he knew when the game was up. The cold calculation in his eyes showed he had already abandoned the plan and was starting to calculate his sentence. But Carol hadn't. For her, it wasn't over. "Coward!" she spat at her son. "After everything I sacrificed, get him. That's enough." Alexander's calm voice cut through the air. "Officers, get them in the car. Get them out of this area." The second officer helped his partner, dragging a still screaming Carol and a deathly quiet Jacob away. As they passed, Lucy, Carol glared at her with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Lucy. You'll never enjoy that inheritance. I'll rot in jail, but I'll make sure you suffer." Jacob said nothing. He just looked at Lucy with no remorse in his eyes, only a cold void that was somehow far more terrifying than his mother's rage. "Lucy." Dr. Hayes' voice brought her back to reality. The doctor was already kneeling in front of her, ignoring the chaos around them, her professionalism having taken over. "Lucy, listen to me. You're in shock and you're in labor. The contractions are coming too fast." "It hurts," Lucy moaned, leaning on Alexander. "The extreme stress brought it on. We can't deliver here." Dr. Hayes looked at her small clinic. "And we can't go back in there. It's not sterile, not equipped for this." She looked at Alexander. "We need to get her to a major hospital now." Alexander nodded. "I'll call an ambulance." "No time," Dr. Hayes said. "Look at the interval of her contractions. 2 minutes. This is going to be fast. Use that police car they took them in. Tell them to put the sirens on." Alexander thought quickly. "Too risky. We don't know if they have anyone else out here. We'll use my car. It's armored." "A relic from your father," he said to Lucy, with a small, grim smile. He really was paranoid. Everything moved quickly. Alexander lifted Lucy, who cried out in pain as another contraction hit. Dr. Hayes grabbed an emergency bag from her clinic. They bundled Lucy into the back seat of a heavy black luxury sedan. Dr. Hayes got in beside her as Alexander took the wheel. "Where to?" Alexander asked. "Metropolitan General. My team is on standby there. I told them it was a VIP emergency." The car sped off, weaving through traffic. For Lucy, the ride was a blur of pain and fear. Every bump in the road felt like a knife. "I'm scared, doctor," Lucy sobbed, gripping Dr. Hayes' hand. "What if that key, that object, hurts the baby when it comes out?" Dr. Hayes took Lucy's face in her hands, forcing her to make eye contact. "Lucy, listen to me. You have been through hell. You have defeated 2 monsters. Now comes the hard part, but you are not alone. Focus on your breathing. Focus on your baby. I will worry about that damned object." "Understood. Your only job right now is to deliver this baby. Leave the rest to me." Those firm words grounded Lucy. She nodded, closed her eyes, and focused. They pulled up to the hospital's emergency entrance. A team of nurses and a gurney were waiting. It was a smooth, professional operation, the polar opposite of the chaos at the clinic. Lucy was rushed immediately to a prepared private delivery suite. Alexander stood outside the door, coordinating with hospital security. No one was getting onto that floor without his authorization. Lucy was hooked up to monitors. The baby's heart rate was strong, but her contractions were incredibly intense. Dr. Hayes examined Lucy. "Fully dilated. Lucy, your body knows what to do. It's time to start pushing." Lucy looked at Dr. Hayes. She was safe from Jacob. She was safe from Carol. Now she had to face the final challenge her father had placed in her womb decades ago. "Push, Lucy. Push." Dr. Hayes' voice was Lucy's only anchor in a sea of pain. Lucy pushed with every ounce of strength she had left her body, arching on the bed. The delivery room was a hive of focused activity. A nurse wiped sweat from her brow. Another monitored the fetal heart rate. "I can't do it anymore," Lucy whispered, breathless. "Yes, you can. I can see the head. One more time, Lucy, push with all your might." Lucy took a deep breath and, ignoring the burning pain and immense pressure, she pushed with a soul-tearing scream. And suddenly, All that pressure was gone, replaced by the sound of a loud, powerful cry full of life. "He's here!" a nurse exclaimed. Lucy collapsed back, spent. Tears of relief streamed down her cheeks. She had done it. Her baby was safe, a healthy boy. "Lucy," Dr. Hayes' voice was gentle for the first time. The doctor expertly dealt with the umbilical cord before passing the baby, still slick with vernix, to the pediatric nursing team. "He's perfect." Lucy cried silently, watching the team clean her son, the reason she had fought. He was healthy, but Dr. Hayes wasn't done. Her face grew serious again. She looked at Lucy. "Lucy, the baby is safe. Now let's finish this. Don't move. The placenta will deliver soon, and I need to check on that object." Lucy was too exhausted to speak. She just nodded. Dr. Hayes worked quickly. After the placenta was delivered, she performed a manual examination with extreme care, using a portable ultrasound probe at the same time to locate the object. "Okay, good," she muttered. "It hasn't shifted. It's far from the placental implantation site. Your father knew what he was doing. The object was not in the uterine cavity, but implanted in the myometrium, the muscle of the uterus." Do I need surgery?" Lucy asked weakly. "Not necessarily," Dr. Hayes said. "I can get it out, but not now. You've just given birth. Your body needs to recover. Trying to remove it now would be too risky for hemorrhage." Lucy looked disappointed. "So it's still inside me?" "For now," Dr. Hayes said. "But it's inert. It poses no danger to you." Suddenly, the doctor paused. She looked at the ultrasound screen again. "Wait, that's odd." "What?" Lucy said, alarmed again. "It looks like there's a small light inside the object. It's blinking very faintly." Dr. Hayes zoomed in on the image. "My God, the object is activating. Your baby's birth, your baby's DNA must have triggered it." Just then, the delivery room door opened. Alexander walked in, flanked by 2 hospital security guards. He looked urgent. "Lucy, doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just received a call from the Swiss Central Bank." Alexander looked both confused and tense. "What?" "Richard Franklin's will just executed automatically. His entire fortune, billions of dollars, has just been transferred into a new account in the name of Lucy Franklin and her descendants. It happened exactly 3 minutes ago, sir." Alexander looked at his watch. Dr. Hayes looked at Alexander, then at Lucy, then at the ultrasound screen. Exactly when her baby was born. The birth was the key, a biometric key. Lucy looked at her son, now cleaned and wrapped in a blanket, being brought over by a nurse. He wasn't just her baby. He was her liberator. The nurse placed the baby on Lucy's chest. Lucy held him tight. "Hello, little one," she whispered. Alexander came closer, a genuine smile on his face. "Congratulations, Lucy. You did it. You're a wealthy woman and you have a healthy son." "But what about Jacob and Carol?" Lucy asked. "They are being taken care of. They won't see the light of day for a very, very long time," Alexander said. "There's still one problem," Dr. Hayes said, packing away her equipment. "That key, that object is still inside Lucy, and it's active now. We don't know what other functions it has besides triggering the transfer." Alexander stared at the blinking capsule on the ultrasound screen. "I think I do," he said quietly. "Your father, Richard Franklin, wasn't just paranoid. He was a vengeful genius." "What do you mean?" Lucy asked. Alexander looked at Lucy seriously. "Lucy, I don't think that object just opened an account. I think it's been recording." "Recording what?" "Everything," Alexander said. "For years. Every conversation, every threat, every whisper. Richard Franklin didn't just give you an inheritance, he gave you a weapon, and we just turned it on." The procedure to remove the object took place 2 days after Lucy gave birth. It wasn't major surgery, but it required immense precision. Dr. Hayes enlisted the help of a thoracic surgeon accustomed to dealing with foreign bodies to perform the procedure while Lucy was under light sedation. Alexander waited outside with a court order authorizing him to take possession of the object as evidence. The procedure was a success. When Dr. Hayes emerged from the operating room, she was holding a small, sterile vial. Inside was a metallic capsule the size of a grain of rice, but slightly thicker. It was a dull color, but on its surface, a tiny blue LED light blinked, indicating it was still active. "Here it is. Dr. Hayes said, handing it to Alexander. "The relic of Richard Franklin, that crazy genius. Lucy is fine. She's in recovery now. This is your department." Alexander took it with a mixture of dread and awe. He immediately took it to the best digital forensics team in the country. What they found surpassed his wildest imaginings. The object was a biometrically powered audio recording device designed to be permanently active, drawing power from body heat and micro nerve impulses. And as Alexander had suspected, it had been recording for 15 years since the day it was implanted in Lucy's 15-year-old body. The audio data they extracted was terabytes large. Most of it was the trivial sounds of Lucy's daily life teachers, lecturing chats with friends, the sound of movies. But Alexander and his team focused on the recordings from the day Lucy met Jacob. And there, they struck gold. The trial of Jacob and Carol was front-page news. At first, their lawyers, hired with the remnants of the money Jacob's family had paid out, were arrogant. They argued that Lucy was an emotionally unstable wife, suffering from postpartum paranoia. They claimed Jacob's medical journal was just a record of fantasies or a misinterpreted research draft. They said Carol's letter was the emotional outburst of a misunderstood mother from decades ago, with no relevance to any crime. They painted Jacob as a devoted doctor and Carol as a doting grandmother. Lucy sat in the courtroom, her infant son Matthew in her arms. She was calm. Beside her sat Dr. Hayes and her Aunt Martha. Alexander stood with the prosecutor. "Your Honor," Jacob's lawyer said, "the prosecution has not presented a single piece of tangible evidence that my client ever intended to harm his wife, only conjecture and illegally obtained private writings." The prosecutor smiled slightly. "Your Honor, we would like to present one final piece of evidence. Exhibit A." Alexander stepped forward and handed the court clerk a drive with the data. This evidence, the prosecutor said, was recovered from the victim's own uterus. A murmur went through the courtroom. Jacob's lawyer jumped to his feet. "Objection! This is an absurd theatrical tactic." "Objection overruled," the judge said. "I've reviewed this forensic report. Proceed." The first audio recording was played. It was Lucy's and Jacob's voices happily discussing the rug for the nursery 3 months prior. It sounded as clear as if they were in the room. Jacob's lawyer swallowed. The clarity of the recording was eerie. "And now," the prosecutor said, "we will play a recording from October 14th at 2 a.m., recorded in the study of the defendant's home." Jacob's voice whispered but clear. "She went to see another doctor. Mom. Yeah, just a cheap 4D ultrasound. She's too dumb to suspect. The object's position is still secure. Yes, Mom, I'll extract it myself during the delivery. I still have Richard Franklin's inheritance documents. It's all going according to your plan." Jacob in the defendant's box stared at the floor, his face ashen. Beside him, Carol began to tremble, not with fear, but with rage. "And now," the prosecutor said, "a conversation between the two defendants recorded in their living room 2 days later." Carol's voice cold and calculating. "You need to be firm, Jacob. This pregnancy is making you soft. Don't forget the goal." Jacob's voice, "I'm not getting soft, Mom. I'm just being careful." Carol's voice, "Caution doesn't get you billions. The anesthesia accident plan is the best. Cleanest way to eliminate future ownership complications. She doesn't need to live long after we have the key." A collective gasp went through the room. A juror covered her mouth. Carol stared at Lucy, her eyes on fire. "And one more," the prosecutor boomed, his voice echoing. "A recording from 20 years ago recorded when the defendant Jacob, as a college friend, visited Ms. Franklin's home, while the defendant Carol, posing as a catering consultant at the time, spoke with him at the door. A younger Carol's voice hissing, "Look at that girl, Jacob." Lucy. "Her father has implanted the key inside her. I know it. You must become an obstetrician. You will make her fall in love with you. You will bring home what is rightfully ours. Don't fail me." It was the smoking gun. Decades of conspiracy murder plots, malicious intent, all recorded thanks to the paranoid genius of Richard Franklin. Jacob's lawyer sat down with nothing left to say. There was nothing to say. The judge read the verdict, guilty on all counts, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, medical forgery, and kidnapping. As the judge sentenced them to life in prison without the possibility of parole, Carol exploded. "You think you've won!" She screamed at Lucy, struggling against the guards. "You just got lucky, you stupid girl. You're just like your father. We'll get out. We'll get out, Jacob." Jacob, in contrast, didn't move. He just looked at Lucy, his eyes filled with a hollow horror, the look of a trapped sociopath. His only regret was that he had failed. Lucy met his gaze without fear. She hugged Matthew tighter. She had faced her monsters and she had won. Legal justice was served. Now it was time for emotional justice. A year passed. Lucy's life was transformed. She moved out of the house filled with bad memories. She now lived in a bright estate by a lake, all glass and sunlight. The walls were adorned with photos of her son Matthew, who had grown into a healthy, happy toddler. Aunt Martha lived with her, her face no longer etched with fear but with genuine happiness as she helped care for Matthew. Richard Franklin's fortune didn't just sit in a bank. Lucy, with Alexander's full guidance, turned her tragedy into a purpose. They established the Lucy Franklin Foundation. It was no ordinary charity. The foundation had two main branches. The first, run by Dr. Hayes herself, was the medical wing. It provided free legal and medical services to women trapped in situations of medical negligence or abuse, especially by their spouses or family members. Dr. Hayes' clinic was now a state-of-the-art facility that trained other doctors to recognize the subtle signs of covert abuse. The second branch, managed by Alexander, was the legal wing. It managed Lucy's entire estate and aggressively funded litigation against predators like Jacob and Carol. They were the nightmare of con artists disguised as love. Lucy herself was the face of the foundation. No longer a timid victim, she was a strong philanthropist, her voice quiet but firm, an advocate for those who couldn't speak for themselves. One day, Lucy asked Alexander to arrange something, a visit to a maximum security prison. "Are you sure, Lucy?" Alexander asked. "You don't have to do this." "I know," Lucy said. "It's not for them, it's for me." The final chapter. Lucy and Alexander sat in a sterile visitation room separated by thick glass. Two figures in dull orange jumpsuits were led in on the other side. Time had not been kind to Carol and Jacob. They had aged drastically. Carol, once so elegant, now had stringy, unkempt hair. Her eyes were filled with an ingrained hatred. Jacob looked worse. He was gaunt. His gaze was empty. The vestiges of his charisma were long gone, leaving him a miserable shell. Prison sources said they hated each other, blaming one another for their failure at every moment. Jacob didn't even look up, but Carol glared at Lucy. Lucy picked up the intercom phone. "Hello, Carol. Hello, Jacob." Carol sneered. "Have you come to gloat? To enjoy your father's dirty money?" Lucy smiled faintly. She signaled to Alexander. Alexander picked up the intercom next to her. "Good morning. I just wanted to inform you both that the civil litigation has concluded. All of your personal assets, Carol's house, Jacob's savings accounts, his physician's pension, even the furniture from your old home have been seized as damages." Carol's face hardened. "However," Alexander continued, "my client, Ms. Franklin, is very generous." Carol's eyes flickered slightly, a foolish hope that Lucy would show her mercy. "Mrs. Franklin has instructed me," Alexander said, "to transfer all of your seized assets to the newest branch of the Lucy Franklin Foundation. We're calling it the Carol and Jacob Fund for Victims of Medical Fraud. Your money will be used to help the very people you nearly destroyed." It was the final blow. It was perfect karma. Jacob finally looked up, his eyes showing a flicker of horror. Carol slammed her fist on the glass. "You devil bitch!" she screamed. Lucy finally picked up her own intercom, her quiet voice cutting through Carol's screams. "You were right about one thing, Carol. I have my most valuable asset." She pulled a photo of a smiling Matthew from her purse and held it against the glass. "This, something you can never touch." She looked at Jacob, who was staring at the photo as if hypnotized. "And you, Jacob," Lucy said softly, "you were a doctor. You took an oath to do no harm. You lost everything, not because of my father, but because you forgot your own oath. You failed as a doctor, you failed as a husband, and you failed as a human being." Lucy stood up. She looked at Carol one last time. "You wanted my family's legacy. Well, now you have nothing." Lucy and Alexander turned. They didn't look back. They walked out of that grim visiting room as Carol continued to pound on the glass, and Jacob finally lowered his head and began to quietly cry. Outside, the sun was bright. Lucy took a deep breath of the fresh air. She was free. She was strong. She was safe. She got into her car. In the back seat, Matthew was sleeping soundly in his car seat with Aunt Martha smiling as she watched over him. Lucy smiled back. This story was over, and her new life was just beginning.